All you, George.
Thank you very much, Christian. Hi, everyone. This is our agenda. You have it on the screen. I think Marcin is not with us today to make an update about the networking and everything else. So I will give the presentation to Michael to make a short update for us. Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah, this is going to be very short. I just wanted to tell people that we did have a first meeting to talk about security policy yesterday, which was very helpful, and we elicited a lot of concerns of various kinds. I've taken some notes. I will put them somewhere. I will put them somewhere more useful. And we thought, and the sort of next step, well, we're going to meet again to consider something. There's a bunch more stuff we need to do, up to and including stuff like how we handle the disaster recovery policy for the Cardano network, which I think already exists, but is also similarly very IOG specific. And I think what we're going to do is just produce a straw. Well, I produced a straw draft that captures, I think, some of what we discussed, and then we can we'll meet again to complain about that. So that's a very brief update, but that's just to say that we had a meeting.
Thank you very much, Michael. So now I'll give the speech to Sandeep and have a short introduction from Sandeep to Bogdan about our strategy, which is the central point of our discussion today. Thank you very much, Michael. Please, Sandeep.
Thank you. This week there was a scheduled strategy meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. So I would give to Bogdan for the update.
Okay, so my ball in my court. Yeah, so as we discussed a few days ago or yesterday, don't remember exactly, it was like for today to start defining a bit more about this strategy, especially on the foundation level with mission, vision, values, and agree on some points. For my own way of work, I started to put everything in a kind of Miro board, and I will share this with you. I will put a link in the chat. And also I will put on the screen. Okay. So what you see on the screen looks pretty complicated, and actually is, in my opinion, any complicated thing should start with a simple thing. I think that this is the Gaull's law with the complex systems and simple systems. So for that reason, when I was starting to put these sticky notes here for mission, vision, values, and so on, I was having a fundamental question. This strategy is for whom? For what? What's the name of the entity? What's the name of this ship that we want to propel? And there are few here on the top, are few options. And then the next question is, for me at least, who is our audience? Who is the ultimately beneficiary of what we are doing? To whom we are delivering some value? So let's try to respond to these questions. Just make me this favor to understand if this strategy, it's about this committee, it's about the OSPO or open source office, it's about Intersect, or it's about in a larger term as Cardano open source initiative. Because once we know this response, we'll be able to define the mission and vision more accurately. So, opinions. What do you think?
Michael, please. Michael raised the hand.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean, I have an opinion. I think, you know, multiple of these are relevant, right? Like in terms of what we can actually control, right? There's a question of, first of all, who we might actually be able to make recommendations to, who we can actually be steering. And to a limited degree, we can steer several of these bodies. You know, we can maybe steer Intersect a bit. We can hopefully steer the OSPO quite a lot. We can maybe steer the people who contribute to the Cardano open source community a bit. But, you know, I think our goals are very poorly understood because Intersect didn't give us any. But broadly, you know, I think, as I understand it, part of Intersect's reason for existing is to make the open source projects that it supports, particularly Cardano, successful, and that we are the manifestation of that. That's kind of how that's sort of how I think I understand it. So I don't know
you say that it's more likely like this?
well, I think probably it's a combination of that one and the fourth one, right? That if you think about who are we talking to, you know, we're mostly going to be talking to we might be asking the OSPO to do things. We might also be asking the people who are doing open source work on Cardano to do things. I think that's kind of, to me, seems like the people we're able to actually speak to. And I mean, the OSC, obviously, that's us, right? So we can, you know, yes, we can tell ourselves what to do.
Okay, thank you. Other opinions?
That makes sense. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so we have a kind of agreement that we are talking about this ship being named open source office with a connection to Cardano open source world. Yes?
We might want to refine Cardano open source to core Cardano, because I don't know if we have the authority to dictate it for all of Cardano, do we? That's another question associated.
We have some authority over the bits of Cardano open source that are now owned by Intersect. But I guess to me, it seems the last thing seems more important. Like, what is it that we're trying to achieve through whatever it is we're doing? We're trying to make the Cardano and associated open source project successful, right? That's the thing we actually care about. The OSPO could go up in smoke tomorrow, and that doesn't really matter, except insofar as it makes it harder for us to do things. The subject matter that we want to have an effect on is that fourth thing.
Okay, great. Good progress.
I think.
And then the next. Okay. Any other opinions, or I can go to the next fundamental question that I had? To whom we deliver value here, and why we work hard for what type of people? Actually, who is our audience? To whom we deliver value? And here are some options: to the whole world, to the Cardano's very broad community, business, engineers, everyone that has any ties to Cardano, to Intersect itself, to Cardano contributors, more like the tech side of Cardano, which is actually this, in a broader terms, Cardano technical community. So these were like my options here for this question.
I mean, again, I would say I would probably focus on, again, the people who are involved in the open source work. That's for our committee, at least, right? Like, you know, there's obviously there are people in Intersect who are concerned about whether Cardano is delivering value to the community and concerned about whether Cardano is delivering value to the whole world and so forth. But I don't think that's our remit, right? It seems to me like our remit is to make, you know, the open source development community work well.
So could be this one, Cardano broad community,
Well, I think that suggests people who use it as well, and I'm not sure that's our job again, right? Like that's maybe the job of the vision committee or the membership, the community committee or something. You know, if we're the open source committee.
Alex raised the hand, please.
Thanks. Well, it touches quite a bit on the difficulties that we experience with the developer working group and the issues that we are discussing. And we are actually at the point where we are totally in the dark as towards like where Cardano is going and how do we fit into it. And my question would be, how do people who want to build some kind of product using Cardano technology, how do they fit into this picture?
Are they doing open source on Cardano? Are they doing open source at Intersect? I'm not sure they are. You know, I think a really easy way for us to founder and do not very much is for the scope get too big.
Christian, please.
Yeah, I mean, I see it kind of the middle to the right, intersect the contributors and the technical community. And then if you focus on that, it reaches out to the broader community, right? From a natural open source perspective, if you can make onboarding and set up a path where people can contribute, become maintainers and stuff like that, it inherently benefits Intersect as being that broker between the community and projects, and then goes out to the broader community.
Sandeep, please.
Yeah, on this, my opinion would be Cardano contributors and Cardano open source say users in a way, but that has to be related with Intersect. There could be other companies or contributors who are working on Cardano but not directly related to Intersect. Then this strategy might not be applicable to them. Why should they use it? They could form their own strategy for themselves. It doesn't need to be open source for them. So it's I would say it has to be related with the Intersect and Intersect contribution on open source.
But you know, when you say Intersect, you say the limited number of people that belongs in a way or another way to Intersect. I don't know, 20, 30, 40 people, the internal stakeholders, let's say in our business language.
I would take that and add in the members of Intersect too, because that's kind of who the stakeholders are.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So do you think that more or less is everything besides the whole world, right?
I think you got Marcin, then Nick, then Michael.
Oh, sorry.
Marcin, please.
Thanks. So open source is about actually making things easy or possible for others to contribute. So if you're a company that is building something on top of Cardano and you don't like particular thing, you have a platform to actually come and join the effort, submit a proposal, maybe have some resources to do that, or somebody else can do that. So I think we should actually, as an open source community, strive for the technical community, so that it makes it the easiest possible for getting such contributors.
Yes, Michael, please.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think, you know, to some degree we've sort of got the proxy goals for Intersect. I'm not sure our strategy needs to necessarily directly. I mean, some aspects of it will probably tie into strategy for Intersect, but you know, for an Intersect open source project to be successful doesn't mean that Intersect members are really easily able to contribute to it. It probably means that everybody is really successfully able to contribute, whether or not they are, you know, members of Intersect. If we have some company that, so I'm disagreeing with Sandeep here, I think. If we have some company that wants to, you know, make a modification to Cardano but isn't a member of Intersect, well, for the Cardano projects to be healthy open source projects, I don't see why we shouldn't be encouraging those kinds of contributions. So as I see to it, you know, the sort of, in terms of addressing Intersect's interests, we're sort of just handling a fairly kind of high level goal of make the open source projects successful. And that then, at that point, I think to some degree, we don't need to think that much about Intersect.
Nicholas, please.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, I agree with both Martin and Michael on this. I think actually this is looking at everything a little bit the wrong way around. You know, we effectively have a mandate. You know, it may be poorly defined. That mandate is to make effectively the development and maintenance of Cardano successful as an open source project. So who is the audience for what we do here? Well, to an extent, that's up to us to decide. You know, if we feel that making Cardano a successful open source project along whatever timescale we're using requires that we engage Intersect for now, then that's fine. If we just, you know, it may be that, say, within a time span of a couple of years, we'll decide that, you know, the audience for that needs to be a much wider community. But the community isn't actually driving it. The mandate is, you know, that we make this a successful open source project, and then, you know, part of that will be working out, well, who do we need to engage in order to achieve that mandate?
Sandeep, please.
Yeah, coming back to the same point, people who are interested in contributing to the open source and Intersect being kind of like umbrella for Cardano keeping as keeper, I would imagine that they would be involved with Intersect in some form. Not necessarily, it's not a requirement, but I would imagine that they would be joining Intersect as a member, as a contributor.
I'll bet against that. I will bet that most of the contributors will not be members of Intersect. They might work for members of Intersect, maybe, but I bet most of them will not be members. Of course, this is an empirical prediction. So,
Yep.
So let's say, to conclude a bit, could be something like the current community and potential people that want to join to the community in order to contribute in any way to Cardano, something like this.
we say
So
current and potential contributors.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Like that sounds fine.
Okay. Great. Now, just to show you why
Actually,
I'm
sorry,
trying.
can I just say one thing briefly, just
Yeah.
while we're on that, which is this is the thing that comes up quite frequently, which is that it's slightly ambiguous what the scope of like Intersect project interest is. You know, Cardano is obviously the major thing, but then we have various non-core Cardano things. We already have GovTool. It's super unclear what things will be in there afterwards, and so to some degree, I think it's worth, whenever we think about, you know, we're kind of using Cardano as a stand-in for like the Intersect projects, but we might want to occasionally think to ourselves, well, what about other Intersect projects that might appear for some reason or another? And that makes things much less clear, annoyingly, but
caveat that too. I think we can rely on the TSC to align what those pillars are, because anything we onboard will have to have their approval prior to a migration once they mature to that state. But for right now, we'll just focus on Cardano and GovTool and test the strategy on that. We have a 2-month pilot, and then if the action of this strategy works, we can then mold it to fit these other areas of interest.
Yeah, we should just occasionally think, is this false for things that aren't Cardano? But I think it's mostly not too big a problem.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a problem until Q3 this year, probably.
Okay, so the end goal here will be to populate this template here, starting with who we are. We are OSPO and broader Cardano open source initiative. We believe in, and for this audience that we have discussed before, we want to create something, and we envision a future world like this, so that our first steps in the next 1-2 years will be focusing on some areas or opportunities that we want to pursue for the next 1-2 years or focus on these areas. So in those areas, we want to increase the number of by whatever percent, move the needle there, these goals. In order to get there, in the moment where these goals will be achieved, we have to start working on something very hands-on, aka actions or projects. So this will be, in my opinion, the way that we have to advance. Now, as a next step here, let's move on the mission side. What you see here in black was a thing that I found in many documents, many places, was, let's say, like an initial proposal for the mission. And also was my starting point in thinking, because I was imagining that this mission here was something that is you are aligned already. In my opinion, this mission is quite fluffy a bit, and I felt like we need a shorter, more clear statement. And this is the reason in the document that we have discussed 2 weeks ago, you have seen this one that was commented in the document, and we have another proposal that is this one. So we start in this point when we have 2 candidates for the mission and a larger one with more details here. What do you think?
Honestly, the one in the middle looks the yellow one looks pretty reasonable. You know, it's has some aspirational bits. You know, we open Cardano to the world, but it's, you know, yeah, maybe it should have a little bit more about actually how we do it. But sorry, Michael.
Yes, Michael, please.
No, go ahead. I just think it's not clear what it. I think it's a bit. I also think it's a bit fluffy. Like, what does it mean to say we open Cardano into the world, right? What specifically do we want, right? I can see what we might want here. We might say we want there to be lots of contribution to the development of Cardano. But if that's the case, let's say that. You know, I otherwise maybe we're talking about, you know, making the Cardano network usable by people across the world, which is not at all what we're talking about, I assume. And similarly, you know, the thing about the future blockchain technology, right? That's just kind of broad, and I'm not sure we're even, if we're talking about the people who are shaping the future, maybe that's really should be about like the SIP process or something, right? Like that's where the decisions about the future are being made, or the vision committee. They're the people who are deciding where we're going. Is that really what we're doing? Is that really our mission? And it
Well, that's where you bring it back to what the open source committee is doing within that
Right.
aspect and narrowing.
So we
it
are
down.
coming back to this point here.
So
Who we are.
maybe that seems like it could be a fine mission for Intersect, maybe, but I think that for it to be useful for us, it has to be a bit more specific than that. It has to be about maybe, you know, open source software, right?
But it's not for us, again. It's for our audience, because this is the reason we have discussed about the audience.
How about the thing that I just wrote, something like that
What did you write?
Oh, yeah.
in the chat?
We enable the successful development and evolution of Cardano as a community-led decentralized open source project.
That seems fine. I mean, that seems similar to the orange one, which is the one that I proposed.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
Like that's. I like that it at least mentions open source, right? It mentions our end goal, which to me I think is having the Cardano projects be like great open source projects. I mean, maybe for me that would be the short mission. We want the Cardano projects to be great open source projects. That's my like pithiest.
But you know what, Michael? Sorry for not agreeing too much.
Please
A good mission is not like we want to be successful. You know, everyone wants to be successful. Saying that we want to be successful, it's like I don't know, redundant.
We're saying a successful in a particular domain, right? But I think I don't know. A lot of these things look a lot like we want to be successful to me.
I guess the successful is not the key part of any of these. Successful is just we don't want them to be crappy open source projects. But let's say, we feel like they're already successful projects. The point is transitioning them to being, yes, rather than IOG led and controlled, we want them to be community led and actually run as decentralized open source projects.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think it bridges both points. That's what I'm a +1 for next draft.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair, Nick.
Okay, so we have an agreement for this one, right? Which is here in the middle.
Speak now, or forever hold your peace.
We enable the successful development and evolution of Cardano as a community-led decentralized open source project. Sounds good. I don't know.
It's transitional, right? Like, you can
Yeah.
imagine we might achieve this at some point, but that's probably fine. If we do achieve that, then we might want to change it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
this was our first draft anyway.
We don't need to boil all of the frogs in one go, or whatever that expression is. Not that I want to boil frogs. Sorry.
Okay, good. We move quite fast. So next step will be here to discuss about the vision. Again, here on the black is what was in the documents that I have seen. Here is this one. It's something that I was proposing in the documents already discussed. And here it's another proposal again from my side. I didn't get anything in the document as a new proposal for the vision. So the only two that we have for discussions are these two. Here.
Did Michael not propose something in the document? I thought Michael had put something there.
I don't know. I admit I find this a little tricky also because I feel like Nick's mission is pretty clear to a vision, right? Like it describes the state. I find it difficult to distinguish these things, right? Like there's a clearly an implicit vision in that mission, which is Cardano is a community-led decentralized open source project.
At the end of the day, we don't need to stick too much to this rigid way of having both. I don't know. Sometimes could be both mission and vision to be combined in one single statement. So, if we struggle to have both, we can have just one single statement. No problem, in my opinion.
And just to say, I think my problem with these visions is that a lot of them seem like they reach out of our scope, right?
Well,
I don't think we're really in a position to do anything that's going to cause the creation of a society based on empowerment, transparency, and equity. Like that's just not something we can do. Like, we might be able to look to a state where the open source functioning of Cardano is excellent in some regards, and again, maybe Intersect has bigger visions for Cardano, which is fine because Intersect has got much more capabilities and is doing more stuff. But I think for us, I think we should have some slightly more modest vision.
Missions describe what you do, who you are in the present. Vision summarizes your future, describes what you want to do, and who you want to be. Typically.
Well, then maybe the mission that we've written in the mission should in fact be the vision.
So actually, it's a concept that many people have different opinions. My opinion, and let's say what I can say, like being on a more general opinion, is that the mission states the future state, where we want to go in future, where we want to be in the future, and vision describe the state of the world once our mission is accomplished. So when the mission is accomplished, the world will look like this.
What about taking the black one and dropping the second half of it as a vision? Our vision is position Cardano.
So having just the first part, right? Our vision is
Yeah, get
our
rid
vision is to
through.
position Cardano as a global benchmark for open source excellence, driving transformative change in the blockchain landscape. That's all. Right? The first.
I think you could maybe even put in like some of the, maybe a little bit about how the through strategic governments, cutting edge technologies, and a thriving community.
I mean, isn't that saying how you get there, which is the thing I thought?
No, maybe. Yeah. Okay.
I
Fine.
mean, maybe we could say, what would the world look like if we achieved our mission? What were the things that were in the mission where we said we wanted it to be community led and decentralized? So maybe we should say something where our vision is of a Cardano project that is, has strong community leadership, and where central entities have taken a backseat and development is done in a decentralized and open fashion or something.
Copy and paste that. I like that one.
Sorry, can you repeat? What should I copy and paste?
I'll write something. I was just spewing words from my mouth.
Essentially, Cardano open source project is community led. Centralized companies take a backseat, and then something else.
Yeah.
Can you drop me a line in the chat?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I'll write something in the chat.
Yeah, we might want something about the thing about like thriving community might be good. We want to. Our vision should encompass the fact that we, this is where we probably can put successful in, right, and that we want it to be a big community. We want it to be diverse, etc. If we've done our job correctly.
I don't know. How about something like that? I don't know, but something that at least calls out to the goals of having it be led by the community and be decentralized seems.
Okay, we can work on it, no problem. So just to have us on.
He dropped in the chat.
Yeah, I put something in the chat. But.
So our favorite is this one that stays here in the middle, right? We envision a future where the Cardano project is strongly led by a thriving community, and its open development is not dominated by any single entity. Okay, good.
Sandeep,
please, Sandeep.
Here, could there be a different understanding of what the Cardano project is? Because it's an open source umbrella in a way, and there are going to be more projects than just say, if it is understood as Cardano.
I somehow resonate because project, the word project in a mission and vision doesn't look too good. So.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you look at it, right? Like, there's the view of Intersect, where Intersect exists to be for Cardano.
Initiative, we can say initiative instead of project. I don't know.
But I think we could probably search and replace Cardano with Intersect projects, everywhere, and it would be.
I mean, I think Michael's right. The problem is there's a sort of a nesting thing of there is Cardano, just like the Cardano node, etc. What we think of as like the Cardano software. At the same time, there is Cardano being the broad ecosystem that yes, Intersect was basically set up to democratize and make wider. And I think we're using Cardano in that second meaning here. We're not referring to just the Cardano node. We're referring
we also don't mean the wider ecosystem, because not all of those projects are things that we can influence in Intersect. And so I guess that's why I've been sort of saying Intersect projects, because I don't know how else to limit to the set of things that Intersect has influence over, right?
But in the vision, I don't feel we need to. We can say that if we're successful, what we will achieve is allowing the broader set of things, including those that are Intersect managed,
that's
to
fair.
take part in this wider ecosystem. So,
well, indeed, if we were successful, maybe we even have beneficial effects on the ecosystem that's not part of Intersect.
Daniel.
Hi. Please. Yeah. I'm not sure if this is something that the open source committee has power over or should focus on, but also how open source materials, like how projects that build on the blockchain, how they can make open source code that encourages other uses, so that we start creating these standards and we start creating these like the usability of the code, and it evolves over time. Is that something in the Cardano like that we should write onto the vision? Is that something that we want to see?
I don't know.
Or is
Maybe. I think it's unclear, right? Like, it seems kind of ambitious to me, right? We could, in terms of what this committee can do, I sort of feel like I'm always, we're trying to say, just try to keep the scope smaller so we don't explode. And I think it would be cool to try and, spread good open source practices throughout the broader Cardano development ecosystem, but I don't know if that's like overreaching, basically.
Well,
whether we won't in practice be able to do that. And
I'm
also,
always-
I think we should focus on the core stuff first. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So one of the things we got to get right is Intersect itself running open source effectively, and then through that being an influence to where other projects can look to for guidance. And that's where the project incubation kind of overlaps two of those things, which I'm trying to draft out. Probably won't get to till Q2. But if you look at other examples like Hyperledger Foundation or the Linux Foundation, they host a myriad of community projects who want to go to them for guidance, know how to do open source better, and build a community around them to help evolve their code to those different use cases and stuff like that. So I think it's definitely a future state to get to. And I'm not against putting it in the vision, because the vision is going to be looking way to the future, right?
And where the Intersects or the Cardano projects or whatever are influential in spreading good open source practice.
Yeah.
Throughout the wider ecosystem.
And that's where you could get the goal open source citizenship from the committee charter, right?
True.
So it's fair to say position the Cardano node repos and whatever other Intersect open source material as a benchmark for open source within the Cardano community, and for as a like a transformative example of how a blockchain can host their open source materials.
Yeah, maybe let me try and write something like I don't know.
Yeah, you just gotta be careful of the language that we're not dictating, but we're setting an example and providing like guidelines. So that's the only caveat to it. So
Okay.
I think we just add language around that to Michael's draft vision.
Okay. Good. So let's move on the values side.
Please take a look in the chat, because Nicolas just wrote and added something, and also
it can be dealt with offline. It's just.
I thought you want to integrate it here.
Yeah, but it's an example. We don't need to. I mean, I think we can.
Okay.
I think we're all roughly agreed on the thrust of where we want to go, and we can twiddle language. I think it would be good to move on to values now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got
20 seconds. 1 second, just to organize a bit here. Okay, good. So now speaking about values, so looking on different places, I found different things. Some of them being named values, some of them being named goals, but having a resonance more like values. What you see here with a heart, these 4 were listed as goals on the document about the committee. What you see as in yellow, they were proposed in the previous version of the document. Now, a few comments from my side. Inclusivity, it's a value for sure, but I don't know, inclusivity at this moment in time, it's something that every organization includes. I don't know, because it's like AI. The question is it something that sticks us together or not? I'm asking these questions because the number of values, I would say, should be around 4, maybe 5, because if we have more, when everything is important, nothing is important. So being able somehow to keep the number to 4, 5. Then community empowerment and everything regarding community, in my opinion, is somehow embedded in any, or should be embedded in any open source initiative. Quality, this is the reason I have this on the border. Quality, in my opinion, it's again embedded. For sure we are doing quality. Is it quality something that it's a core thing about Intersect, Cardano, and so on? Or it's a kind of thing that we have in mind all the time, and we do software programming having in mind quality? And then,
Michael,
yeah.
Michael, Nicholas, you raised the hand. Michael, please.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just wanted to say that I do think that at least like the quality thing for us is not the sort of generic. Obviously, everybody wants quality, right? If you put it in those terms,
Yeah.
it's a nothingness. But I think, you know, what it does. Okay, actually, it's not actually that clear from the charter, but I do think we have a different perspective on that to your average open source project. If you think of the difference between, I don't know, someone's open source project for, you know, counting the number of lines in a text file and the Linux kernel, there's clearly there's a sense in which quality is much more important to the Linux kernel than it is to a random open source project, because you're building like critical software upon which huge amounts of value depends. And that's the place where we are. And that's why I think it is meaningful to say quality here, because we have to have a much higher commitment to quality than average, right? You know, it does make us, it's unusual. It makes us stick out. We're different.
Good.
Because of that.
Good, great, good
Yeah.
point. Let's
Sorry,
call
sorry,
what do you say?
Nicholas
Sorry,
has
I
raised-
have
Please.
George. So, what do you think if you change the name of quality with technical excellence?
Yeah.
Different to me.
I mean,
Nicola?
I think this is relevant to what I was going to say, which is, you know, we have to remember that these values should be seen in the context of effectively the mandate and the work that we're doing. And we have to remember that that is fundamentally not actually creating a new open source project. It's a transformation one. It's taking a project that has been developed in a certain way and transitioning it to being, you know, an open source community led project. And so there's things that we need to, you know, what do we need to keep in mind as we're doing that? And one of those is that, you know, like a lot of sort of analysis has been done, and you know, Cardano has always had a very specific focus on like rigorous engineering and maintaining sort of standards, because it is a finance, you know, ultimately it's something that should be considered as part of financial ecosystem. And that is going to be one of the challenges that we face as we transition it to being community led, because previously everything has been handled via, you know, central control and, you know, very strict limitations on, you know, who can make changes. So I think, you know, the quality should be seen in that light of like, how do we maintain quality whilst at the same time opening up access?
Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, to build off that is kind of the key point of everything. Is Cardano is marketed as something that's never had downtime. It's sufficiently peer-reviewed, academically sound, and we have to keep that now instead of a centralized entity controlling that factor. Now, that's the whole purpose of Intersect, is to continue that quality standard. But now it's decentralized.
Okay,
So
good.
in the chat, sorry, I just have to say, Daniel says peer review. in place of quality. And Sandeep says, for me, quality is basis for trust in software. So it can be trust in software.
Trust, it's a good word, especially in the context of financial product.
I mean, I actually think if we wanted to say, trustworthiness, but in the sense of our software is we produce trustworthy software, that I think would actually be, I would think would also be could be a good clause.
Alex?
Yeah, but isn't trustworthiness kind of the same as legitimacy?
So the legitimacy thing here was supposed to be about accountability to the community, right? So this is a thing I've said before, but I really think it's really important, which is that Intersect has these GitHub repositories. They're just GitHub repositories. Why do they matter? They matter because people build binaries from them that then run the Cardano mainnet. That could change. Someone could fork them. Some people could just decide to stop using them and to build their binaries from somewhere else. That could happen at any time. The only thing that makes that not happen is that the Intersect ones are perceived as the canonical ones because they are trustworthy, but also because, and I think this will be more important in the future, it's because of responsiveness to the community. If there's a big bust up over whether or not something gets implemented, we are reliant on the fact that we can have the technical steering committee and they're elected and they make a decision and we abide by that to say, look, this is why this should be the source code that you all use. And if we lose that, then Intersect is utterly pointless, right? Because then we're just hosting some GitHub repositories that mean nothing. So that's the legitimacy aspect that I've been trying to get at there, and I do think that's mega important for us. Maybe there's a better
Alex?
Yeah, so to me, values are exactly words that you don't have to explain. So if you have to explain, it means there's some kind of non-exhaustive or they intersect too much.
I do think this one is a goal. This one is not so much a value. This is a goal, right? This is a thing that we need and we have to maintain, and we have to. I don't think legitimacy is really a value. That doesn't really make so much sense.
So should the value be the original?
Well, I'm just not sure it is a value, right? Like not everything has to be a value, right?
Bogdan, you can conclude something about quality because we started from this one.
Yes, it's good with quality. I don't have anything against. The only thing I will rephrase to be more appropriate to a core value, something super important, like, I don't know, as I said, technical excellence or trustness, or I don't know. But
Trustworthy, as Michael said, maybe.
I think there was a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
response to trustworthiness. But I mean, again, is that even a value, or is that I don't know.
It's a characteristic. No, yeah.
Can we link them? Can we link the goals with the values that we seek? So like legitimacy, that's a goal. We want to seek some sort of consensus over what we think is the canonical repository, and then we want whatever is added to or how we change it to be of quality. And then with citizenship, like we have the members, but we want members to act transparently.
Yeah, and we could say that the goal is trustworthiness, and our value is technical excellence, which we believe is how we achieve one of the ways that we achieve trustworthiness, perhaps.
One thing about the goals, it's good. It's a good practice to not having ever standing goals, long goals that never are achieved and never are measured, and they are very, very broad, like a value. A goal should be defined in this smart framework, knowing when the goal is going to be evaluated, if it's successful, which are the indicators about the success, and so on. So I don't know, legitimacy as a goal, how can you evaluate? Which is the
Michael?
time frame?
Sure. I mean, I don't disagree with that. Like, it's not a thing we can achieve and then say, congratulations, we've achieved legitimacy. But then I don't know what else to say about it, right? Like, it's a thing that we need and that we need to constantly work to make sure that we attain, and that we need to design stuff so that we continue to have it. Like,
Yes,
not,
we can. If it's so important and it's the foundation of everything, can be somehow integrated in the mission, vision, values.
I mean, let's not get hung up over terminology here. You know, okay, they don't quite fit with it. Then maybe we can say guiding principles or something. You know, I think say maintaining legitimacy has to be one of our guiding principles. Maintaining quality has to be one of our guiding principles. You know, opening up to the community has to be one of our guiding principles. We can come up with a different name. I think that what we should recognize is that these are the key things that we want to focus on. If they don't quite fit in values, it doesn't really matter. Let's rename it.
But
guiding
guiding principles are more or less values in certain ways.
Sure. I mean, I'm just saying let's not get hooked up on whether whether legitimacy is a value or something. It's definitely something that we need to
definitely
do. So
we keep it here as the most important thing. So I will put here on the top. What's next? What is the next one?
I would like also to underline something really important that Nick underlined 3 times: maintaining legitimacy, to show that it exists, it's a value of Cardano, and our goal is to maintain it, not itself as an upside.
To build it, because we have it. Okay, we have it. Is nothing to be built. We have to maintain.
Good. Exactly. Thank you very much. Christian.
I am proposing we take the 4 goals from the charter and just make those our values. We can extrapolate them higher level if we need to. But I mean, it keeps our center focus from when the committee was incepted to now being now we have an action plan against those via the strategy.
So these 4 are legitimacy, citizenship, quality, and
sustainability.
Sustainability, meaning that we can raise money and bring money inside, right? This is sustainability.
Not just money, right? It's an open source project, so sustainability is to a large degree about whether or not we have contributors.
Okay, to bring resources, let's say.
It's ensuring that there's maintenance and a future to those projects, basically.
But also that people are interested in them, or that they are rewarding to work on, or that they're easy to work on. Like all of that, the stuff that means that you will come back tomorrow in a year and there will still be people contributing to this project.
Yeah. And that gives us the 4, and then if there's ones that's missing, we can add a 5th value and then just cap it at that.
No, could be 4, no problem. No, we shouldn't. If the 5th one, we think that there is not a 5th one, then could be 4, no problem.
So just one comment I want to make, which is that notably, this does not include inclusivity or community empowerment. And I think the way that I thought about it was that those are derivative from sustainability. That what our goal, the thing we care about here is the sustainability. And well, in order for it to be sustainable, what do we need? Well, we need lots of contributors. That means we need to have an engaged community. That means we need to bring people in. That derives from the fact that we want these projects to continue. It's not the core value itself necessarily.
Well, and looking at the framework, the next thing of that's the strategic pillars we focus on, and community collaboration is one of the ones that I want to argue for that. Because that gives you your open source standard as well as putting in governance and the project sustainability. But I think we're getting into that next week.
I mean, I think the only thing that's missing there is, a question of, well, one could achieve those 4 things, say, a question of, can we achieve those 4 values by, for example, keeping going as we are now, or should we have a value that speaks to the fact that we do want, some kind of openness, transparency, etc. value that delineates between the situation we're in now, which does sort of keep these things sustainable because IOG keeps paying for them, that the quality is achieved. So that's
I think that's legitimacy, right? Isn't to me at least, Intersect itself is entirely an exercise in legitimacy, or substantially an exercise in legitimacy, and to some degree sustainability, because it's about working out, making the money flow works out.
Being a broker.
But a lot of it is
sorry for interruption. I just want to make something very clear in the meaning of the values and why the values are usually included in a strategy. It is nothing to be achieved. Values are like DNA. We don't have to achieve DNA. It's there. It's what defines us. with 2 arms and 2 legs. It's coded inside of us. This is the thing with the values. We don't have to prove, we don't have to achieve. It's something that guides us all the time.
Sandeep, please.
Yeah. For me, the initial goals does fit. I would go one more is openness or transparency, and maybe mentioning that somewhere or integrating it somewhere, because that's for me it's a core value.
Which one? Sorry.
Openness and transparency.
So that would be a fifth one.
I was saying
And
yes.
that would
I mean,
align to
I
being
agree with
open
it.
source driven. I mean, so do we
So-
word it transparency or openness?
Maybe
I think
transparency.
openness is more general, right? Transparency just means you tell people what you're doing. Openness means you actually want them to
Correct.
participate,
That's-
which requires that you tell them what you're doing.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, so you think that
Openness.
should be
Maybe change it to openness and put it in the rectangle.
And then we have
Also,
5
to be
core
honest,
values.
maybe citizenship is not that big a deal. Like that was there to be about, say, look, we want to be good open source citizens in like the wider ecosystem. And I do think that's true, but it's probably less important than the other things. And if we want to really focus on the important things, then maybe it shouldn't be there. But I do think it's the case that we want to do that, but we want that. But
Well, I'm fine with all 5 of them. I mean, Intersect has 5 values or something similar to that. So
what are Intersect's values?
they might be more
What we
strategic
don't know.
pillars. I'm confusing the terminology.
Why would we know that?
okay. 2 minutes left. I think that we'll not have time for these strategic areas. In my opinion, they are more or less clear because they were agreed. I don't know if anything else in the last 2 minutes.
Yes, I just want to say the 5 values for Michael. It support the community to develop the ecosystem by hosting developer-focused conferences, hackathons, and events. Administrate and champion Cardano's community-led governance, implemented by CIP 6094. Orchestrate delivery of the community-approved Cardano technical roadmap. Facilitate the continuity of Cardano for system stability, and coordinate open source development of core technologies for Cardano. These are the 5 pillars of Intersect.
I put them in the chat for everyone as well.
Interesting.
And I think the last 2 kind of focus towards us.
Yeah,
Mostly.
and the second one is related to legitimacy, right?
Yeah. So I think those 5 core values reinforce that.
Okay, guys, at least from my side, it was a very productive meeting. Thank you.
Yep, I thought that was good. Thanks, Box.
Yeah. We did better than last week.
Yeah. So guys, I think that's it for this week. Stay healthy, have a nice and lovely weekend, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Take care.
Have a nice
Out.
weekend.
Bye.
Hey, a moment, please. You guys, sorry. I would
I'm
like
here.
to know if, yeah, sorry. I would like to know if time has changed or not, because I'm used to open the call at 5.
Yeah, there was a.
time.
It's
Yeah.
usually an hour earlier. There is a mix-up with U.S. daylight savings, which pushed everything back an hour, and I think the U.S. is 2 hours ahead of everyone. So I fixed the invite, and we should be good at the same time next week.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, multiple working groups had the same issues this week. So First time ever happened. So
Okay,
bear with me.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll send a recording to you. No worries. Thanks, boss.
Thanks.